Modern society does not nurture strength, it nurtures weakness. From the very moment we are born, society begins training us, not to be strong, free, or creative, but to be obedient, compliant, and easily controlled. From family and schools to cultural institutions and media, we are taught to think like everyone else, do what is accepted, and avoid anything disruptive. Obedience is praised as morality, while passion is labeled madness. Personal aspirations are branded selfish, and the inner voice, the deepest, wildest part of a human being, is often forced into silence. Society doesn't merely discourage strength, it actively cultivates weakness as a moral ideal. Those who endure, accept, and conform are praised. Meanwhile, those who dare to speak out, question, or go against the crowd are seen as dangerous, abnormal, or even pathological. This is no coincidence. It is a strategy, because a free mind is very difficult to control. A person with inner strength and their own ideals will not be easily led by empty promises or soulless norms. Friedrich Nietzsche, the famous German philosopher, saw this clearly very early on. He realized that most modern humans live in a state of spiritual domestication. They do not truly live. They merely repeat. They do not choose. They inherit. They do not trust their own soul. They trust the crowd. To Nietzsche, this is not life. It is a vague existence, a death disguised as superficial stability. In such a world, speaking the truth becomes a revolutionary act. Daring to live by passion, though labeled madness, is one of the bravest actions, because this society does not hesitate to mock or punish those who break from convention. Those who refuse to accept their assigned roles are isolated, defamed, or deprived of opportunity. But these, according to Nietzsche, are the ones who are truly alive, those who can ignite a dancing star from within their own chaos. Nietzsche believed every person carries within them a transcendent potential, the Übermensch, Overman or Superman. But to reach that strength, we must escape the false security that society creates. The truth is, comfort does not equal freedom. On the contrary, it is a velvet chain, soft, pleasant, yet still a chain. A weak mind will choose the familiar even if it is false, because the fear of change is greater than the pain of illusion. When strength is labeled toxic, discipline is seen as oppression, and enduring hardship to grow is viewed as masochism. What remains to forge a resilient human being? Nothing at all. We produce anxious, dependent generations who seek approval from others and avoid all conflict. But Nietzsche would ask, how can you grow if you have never suffered? How do you know who you are if you have never resisted something? It is precisely in chaos, crisis, and the loneliest moments that humans are forged. Yet modern society teaches us to avoid all of that. The result, minds no longer strong enough to face truth. A generation living in doubt, but too afraid to break free. An era of so-called awakening, yet terrified of freedom to the point of hiding behind inherited habits and ideologies. Nietzsche did not write for the asleep. He wrote for those who sense something is wrong and are willing to confront it. That is the first step of strength, realizing you have been made weak. And if you have the courage to step out of that domestication, you can begin becoming the person you were born to be. Not a cog in the machine, but a free soul amid a sleeping life. Nietzsche, Awakening in a Sleeping World. Friedrich Nietzsche was not a philosopher for those seeking comfort. He did not write to soothe or console human emotions. His philosophy is not a soft pillow to rest on in anxious nights. Instead, Nietzsche is an alarm bell, harsh and fierce, calling out to those sleeping amid a world lulled by convenience, safety, and mechanical living. He speaks to restless souls, those uneasy with reality, those who cannot accept living without understanding why. His philosophy is both an invitation and a challenge to awaken in an unconscious world. Nietzsche lived in an era where traditional values, especially Christianity and its morals, were in decline. But rather than lamenting this loss, he faced the spiritual void head-on, a void where old meanings have died and new meanings are yet to be born. It is a chaotic, terrifying land, but also fertile ground to plant true freedom. He called those who dare live in this void the awakened ones. and they are humanity's only hope to transcend itself. According to Nietzsche, most modern humans live unaware that they are trapped in patterns. They do right things, but never ask why those things are right. They pursue success, but never question who defines success. They are busy and tired, but fear silence, because silence exposes the emptiness inside. Nietzsche does not see them as evil or bad, just unawakened. They live unconsciously, conditioned by society, history, religion, and education without knowing it. Therefore, Nietzsche did not aim to change society from the outside. He did not call for revolution or system overthrow. Instead, he went deep into the individual, into each person, and asked, "Are you truly alive? Are you living as yourself or merely repeating what you were taught?" It is an uncomfortable question because it demands honesty, and Nietzsche knew that honesty with oneself is the hardest thing. But he believed only that ruthless honesty can open the door to true life. Nietzsche argued that the comfort modern society offers is not progress but a form of sedation. Humans no longer suffer as much as before, but the price is losing desire, struggle, and living with intensity. They become bland, safe, nice, but lose identity and soul. Nietzsche called this the age of the last men, those who no longer know love, creativity, or aspire beyond.
We are programmed from childhood to think in certain ways. Success is owning a house, car, title. Happiness is having a lover, money, approval. Morality is obeying laws, following superiors, and not disturbing order. But Nietzsche asks, who made these rules? And why do you believe them? Most cannot answer. They only repeat what they were taught. They call this growing up, but Nietzsche sees it as organized self-hypnosis. Therefore, the first step in healing is not finding yourself, but shedding everything that is not you. It is a process of mental detox, peeling away false beliefs, societal stories, fears that are not yours, but have lived parasitically in your mind too long. It is painful because it leaves you naked and vulnerable, as if all support collapses. But only standing bare before truth can you truly begin to live. Nietzsche is not a pessimist, but a soul doctor. And like any good doctor, he knows healing does not come from painkillers. The illusions we cling to about ourselves, society, or the world are anesthetics. They make us comfortable short-term, but numb and powerless long-term. Nietzsche calls us to break free from these illusions, not to suffer, but to truly become mentally healthy. Truth, to Nietzsche, is a double-edged sword. It can make us bleed, but also cut to heal. It is the truth of the world's meaninglessness if we do not create our own meaning. The truth that no one will rescue us. The truth that the values we worship may be tools of control. The truth that we ourselves have allowed the illusion to persist too long. And when we accept these truths, something strange happens. We grow stronger. A strong mind does not need to know all answers. It only needs the courage to question. It need not always be right. It only needs honesty. It does not flee negative feelings. It listens to them as vital signals. It does not live to please. It lives to be itself. This is the mind Nietzsche wants to awaken in each of us. No longer hiding behind masks, no longer sleeping in illusions, but awake, painful yet vibrant. The final question is, are you willing to step out of the dream that lulls your soul to sleep? Because true freedom, according to Nietzsche, does not come from controlling the outside world, but from freeing the mind from internal illusions. The truth is the fire that burns illusions to forge strength. The journey to becoming the Übermensch, the Overman. For Friedrich Nietzsche, truth is not something beautiful, gentle, or easy to accept. On the contrary, truth is a sharp knife, a burning flame, a storm that can destroy everything we once believed was ourselves. But Nietzsche also believed that only by stepping into that fire, only by accepting the destruction of the false self, can a person truly be reborn. This is not ordinary self-improvement, but a complete transformation. And the one who rises from the ashes is the Übermensch, the human who transcends himself, surpasses the crowd, and rises above the history that has shaped him. Nietzsche did not see awakening as a peaceful state. Instead, he described it as a fierce inner battle. When you begin to awaken from the sleep of society, the sleep of empty morals, of repeated traditions, of inherited beliefs, you do not find peace. You find confusion. You begin to realize that most of what you believe was not chosen by you, but taught, forced, and conditioned upon you. And at that moment, when illusions start to crumble, the real pain begins. We all have a self shaped by society, an identity built from roles, expectations, and definitions imposed by others. When truth begins to break that shell, we feel as if we are losing ourselves. But Nietzsche points out that what is breaking is not your true self, but the false version of you that you have been forced to live by. It is precisely in that fragmentation that the real human, primal, strong, untamed, begins to speak. Nietzsche called this process the revaluation of all values. This means you don't just reject old beliefs, you must build a new system of values from scratch, no longer relying on God's, religion, traditional morals, or society's praise and criticism. Now you must decide for yourself what is right, what is wrong, what is worth living and dying for. This is a heavy, nearly impossible responsibility, but also the purest form of freedom. It is in that fire, when all the old, false, and easy illusions are burned away, that the Übermensch emerges. This is not a superhero in the modern sense, not an omnipotent, invincible being. It is a person who has transcended the crowd, risen above the fearful ego, and overcome the need for acceptance. The Übermensch dares to live by self-created values, dares to bear the consequences of freedom, and dares to reject old molds, even if it means facing isolation, misunderstanding, or danger. In the modern world, where consensus, humility, and fitting in are praised as virtues, the image of the Übermensch is radical and hard to accept. He does not assimilate. He does not seek validation. He does not bow to tradition simply because it has always been that way. He creates meaning for himself and lives by that meaning, even if the whole world calls him crazy. Nietzsche believed every person has the potential to become the Übermensch, but very few dare to pay the price, because that price is the collapse of the current self, the pain of giving up comfort, the courage to step into the dark, where there are no maps, no light, no guarantees except your own will. But he also emphasized there is no other path to true strength. Every attempt to avoid truth, every effort to live well without confronting the inner self only prolongs weakness. The question Nietzsche poses to each of us is, are you willing to let the fire burn away your false self? Do you have the courage to face the truth, that you have lived long without being yourself? Do you dare to rebuild from scratch with a value system that is not borrowed, dependent? Because if the answer is yes, the pain will come, but it will be the pain of rebirth, not destruction. And in the ashes of the old, something extraordinary can be born, a human no longer defined by society, but the creator of his own destiny. Step 1. Facing suffering, the door to true transformation. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering." This statement is not just philosophy. It is a guide for life, an invitation to embark on the journey of self-discovery. In modern times, when everything is oriented toward comfort, entertainment, and avoiding pain, Nietzsche emphasized, to become a strong person, the first thing you must learn is not how to run from pain, but how to face it. Modern society has developed countless tools to mask pain: medication to numb feelings, social media to distract the mind, instant entertainment to forget emptiness. Pain, whether physical or mental, is seen as something to be eliminated at all costs. But Nietzsche saw a paradox. The more we try to avoid suffering, the weaker and more disconnected from ourselves we become. Pain is not the enemy. It is a test, a catalyst for awakening. You cannot mature without having been hurt. A soul that has never broken is a soul that has never truly loved. A person who has never suffered is one who has never fully lived as themselves. Nietzsche did not romanticize pain, nor did he advocate asceticism. But he understood that only through pain, where all masks are stripped away, where all illusions dissolve, can you confront your true nature. And only then does transformation begin. Pain can come in many forms: loss, failure, betrayal, inner emptiness, crisis of meaning. Each person carries their own form of suffering, but most of us are taught to suppress or ignore it. Nietzsche, on the contrary, invites us to dive straight into it. Because within that wound, you will find the key to unlocking the deep self buried beneath adaptation, roles, and social expectations. Facing pain is not merely enduring, it is actively accepting. I am hurting, and I will no longer run away. When you stop running, you begin to listen. When you listen, you begin to understand. And from that understanding, you can find a kind of meaning, not meaning given from outside, but meaning you create in the very act of enduring. Nietzsche believed that people are not destroyed by suffering, but by suffering without meaning. If you can find a reason to continue, you will have the strength to endure anything. And that reason does not come from religion, society, or inspiring slogans, but from something deeper. The truth that suffering is an inseparable part of existence. It is not a flaw in life, it is life itself. The first step to becoming an Übermensch, according to Nietzsche, is not to learn a new philosophy, nor to change the world, but to enter pain honestly, without hiding, without victimizing, without blaming. You must let that fire burn away all that is weak, false, and lazy in your soul. And when the ashes settle, you will see one thing clearly. You are not defeated by pain, you are reborn because of it. In a world that tries everything to avoid pain, facing it becomes the bravest and most liberating act. Nietzsche does not promise it will be easy, he only promises it is real. And only what is real can save the human soul. Step 2. Creating your own values, filling the spiritual void with meaning you build. After daring to face pain, after the false self is burned away in the fire of truth, Nietzsche leads us to the second step in the journey to become a strong human, creating your own values. This is one of his boldest and most controversial ideas, but also one of the most profoundly enlightening for modern people. Nietzsche argued that the modern world is falling into a spiritual void, a frightening silence he called the death of God. He didn't mean simply that religion is declining, but that the moral, ethical, and existential foundations once placed on belief in gods and absolute order have collapsed. This leaves people adrift, unsure why they live, what to believe, or where to turn. No one provides us with ready-made meaning. No absolute moral code remains. No powerful being watches over, punishes, or rewards us with purpose. For many, this is a crisis, but for Nietzsche, it is humanity's greatest opportunity, the chance to create meaning for oneself. He quoted the Russian writer Dostoevsky, "If God does not exist, everything is permitted." But instead of fearing this, Nietzsche saw it as a call to action. If there is no absolute external standard, then we must become the creators of standards ourselves. No longer living by borrowed values, humans now ask, what is right for me? What do I live for? What am I willing to suffer for? In a modern context, where people are surrounded by media definings of success, social moral standards, and family pressures to live right, Nietzsche challenges us. Cast all that aside and find a reason to live that makes you want to wake every morning with fire in your chest. He believed only with a big enough why can a person endure anyhow. Creating values is not a rash decision. It is a journey of exploration, experimentation, breaking and rebuilding. It does not come from inspirational quotes, but from deep reflection. Who am I without my titles, roles, or recognition? From there, we gradually form personal principles, possibly different or even opposed to the majority, but authentic. And that authenticity becomes the foundation of a solid, profound life. Nietzsche warned that when you live by self-created values, you will be misunderstood. You will be mocked, called arrogant, crazy, even dangerous. But that is the inevitable price of truth. In a world of masks, those who live authentically are always seen as odd. But Nietzsche does not advise living for approval. He encourages living as a spiritual creator, one who can stand alone in truth, no longer dependent on old orders, and willing to bear responsibility for their own life. And in that act, when you create a value big enough to live and die by, you are no longer lost in a meaningless world. You become a bearer of light, a guide by presence, not preaching. You need not prove or convince. Your life itself testifies to the power of a soul with a reason to exist. Creating values is the strongest response to the existential crisis of modernity. It is the ultimate creative act, where each person becomes the artist of their own destiny. Step 3. Embracing solitude and misunderstanding. The value of truth in a masked world. On the path to becoming a true human, one living by values they create, Nietzsche warns that acceptance will not come easily. Instead, you will face loneliness, misunderstanding, even ridicule and condemnation. But this is the unavoidable price if you want to break free from society's false masks and live authentically. The modern world is a world of masks. Each person wears a shell shaped by society, culture, and tradition. Common norms and values considered right are imposed on individuals like armor to hide differences and inner conflicts. In this world, those who dare to live authentically are often seen as eccentric, arrogant, or dangerous. They are pushed to the margins, distrusted, and sometimes isolated. Loneliness is not punishment, according to Nietzsche, but an essential part of maturity. When you no longer want to fake assimilation, when you no longer want to play the role society assigned, you feel emptiness because you lose the crowd's comfortable consensus. But that loneliness is the moment you are truly free. You no longer have to hide or pretend. You don't need permission to exist. And it is in that freedom that you find strength to create unique values. Nietzsche described that when the strong begin their journey, they appear small to those who cannot yet fly. They cannot be understood if others do not want to look deeply. But that does not stop them, because they have chosen the path of truth, a lonely path but full of power and creativity. Interestingly, the more authentic you become, the more dangerous you appear to the system. Not because you harm others, but because you cannot be manipulated, no longer led by outdated social scripts. You become a sovereign individual, a self-igniting flame, untouchable by external pressures. Therefore, loneliness and ridicule are not signs of failure, but signs you are on the right path. Those who resist change, those trapped in false safety, will always fear those who dare to live differently. Nietzsche advises that rather than trying to be loved or accepted, you should stand firm in the path you chose, because truth is not always welcomed easily. At this stage, you learn to stop performing for others. You don't need to please, seek permission, or explain. You no longer feel guilty for existing. And that refusal to conform turns you into a threat to social control systems, because you are no longer a tool or obedient machine. This is the crucial step from a weak, easily controlled mind to a sovereign mind, a soul burning with freedom and creativity. Nietzsche does not want us to be followers or unconditional agreeers, but spiritual warriors, those who create new realities, who stand up even if it means suffering losses. Life will not be easy when you choose to live authentically, but that is the price of maturity and freedom. And as Nietzsche said, those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Let the world call you crazy if they don't understand you, because that difference is the highest expression of awakening in a blind world. The world fears independent minds. Nietzsche's desire for creators, not followers. In modern society, there is a hidden truth few dare admit. The world does not want independent minds. Power systems, from politics and economics to social and cultural spheres, always try to maintain order by controlling human thought and behavior. Free-thinking individuals, those who refuse to follow the crowd and cannot be manipulated, are threats to those systems. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this very well. He was not just a philosopher, but a prophet for humanity's future. Nietzsche did not want us to be mindless followers, soulless copies of a domesticated society. Instead, he desired creators, individuals capable of independent thought, daring to be different, breaking all molds, and creating new values for themselves and the world. A sovereign mind, according to Nietzsche, is one free from prejudices and unbound by outdated social rules. Such a person does not seek approval or live by collective consensus, but pursues their own truth and meaning. And it is this freedom that makes them a danger in the eyes of those in power. Social control systems depend on consensus, obedience, and manipulability. When people become independent and self-directed, they disrupt that order. These people are not easily persuaded, bribed, or silenced by false promises or rules. They are spiritual warriors who dare to fight against falsehood and deception, even when facing isolation or violence. True awakening is not a comfortable state, but a dangerous one for the system. An awakened person will not be silent in the face of injustice. They will not obediently follow meaningless rules just because they come from above. They will question, challenge, and innovate, things those in power always try to avoid. Nietzsche stressed the world needs more such minds, people who not only dream, but dare to act to create new realities. These are not unrealistic heroes, but spiritual creators who rebuild the world from within. They are the source of progress and real change. However, becoming a sovereign mind is not easy. It demands extraordinary courage to face social pressures, loneliness and misunderstanding, and perseverance against criticism or opposition. But as Nietzsche said, this is the price of freedom and authenticity. An awakened mind is like a burning flame. It can warm and illuminate, but also burn away old, rotten things. It breaks false safety to bring true change. Those who live with such a mind are never tools of others, but architects of their own destiny. Nietzsche did not want us to be obedient sheep. He wanted us to be lions of spirit, hunters in the world of ideas. And in today's world, those lions are the only ones who can break the cycle of mediocrity and restraint. In summary, Nietzsche calls each of us to bravely step out of the comfort zone of frozen beliefs and habits. Become creators, leaders from within, sovereign minds. Because those minds are the guiding lights for a new world, for a humanity truly awake and free. The painful but transformative cure, the choice between conformity and creation. Friedrich Nietzsche once revealed a harsh but hopeful truth. The cure for a weak mind is not easy comfort, but a painful, challenging journey demanding extraordinary courage. To become a strong mind, uncontrolled by the crowd, unafraid of pain, unshackled by illusions, you must be ready to give up your old self, endure suffering purposefully, and dare to think and live your own way. The healing process Nietzsche referred to is not a quick change or miraculous magic. It is a deep shattering of the old ego, the shell that society, family, and you have built over years. When you enter the fire of truth, you are burned, destroyed in your habits, comforting beliefs, and prejudices you thought were yourself. But that is the prerequisite for a new, stronger, more authentic person to emerge. The suffering in this process is not a disaster, but a means. It is the path to deeper self-knowledge and understanding the world. It helps you realize all true growth requires effort and resilient will. Pain is no longer the enemy, but a teacher, a light showing the path you must walk. More importantly, Nietzsche emphasized that suffering must have purpose. You don't suffer blindly, but learn to find meaning in each wound, each failure, each hardship. Only with a reason to live large enough can you overcome any challenge. That is the power of a free mind. It fears not pain, but knows how to turn pain into strength. Besides, becoming a strong mind also requires you to dare to think and live freely, not irresponsibly or without principles, but freedom with purpose. Freedom to create value and meaning for your life. This means you must take full responsibility for every choice, action, and thought. You cannot escape that freedom by blaming circumstances, others, or society. Nietzsche believed life offers each person a basic choice: either conform to the rules, values, and prejudices of society, becoming part of a sleeping crowd, or be brave enough to forge your own path, becoming the true creator of yourself and the world. The first choice, conformity, seems safer and easier. You don't bear heavy responsibility, don't suffer much pain, and are accepted by the community. But it is also the choice to give up true freedom, inner strength, and individual creativity. The conformist will forever be limited by old patterns, never truly becoming themselves. The second choice, creation, requires you to embark on a path full of challenges, but also full of freedom and meaning. The creator not only builds a life according to their own will, but also plays the role of world changer, an inspiration for others. They dare to stand alone in truth, disregard false consensus, and endure all trials to live most authentically. Nietzsche did not say which choice is easier. He only emphasized that only those willing to pay the price of pain and loneliness can become the Übermensch, the one who has overcome themselves, weakness, and blind obedience. Finally, Nietzsche leaves us a profound reminder. Mental healing and true freedom do not come easily or for free. They are a fierce battle against the base ego, false safety, and social delusions.